welcome to WestEdge 2018. Really excited. For those not familiar, I'm Josh Cooperman. I host and produce Convo By Design podcast and YouTube channel. We're a media company, and we serve you, the interior design and architecture space. I've been working with Troy and Megan here at WestEdge. This is my 4th year, and every year we try to do something new. Incredibly proud this year to be presenting the Programming Lounge. It's designed by Julia Wong, and you'll find hopefully little touches here and there. Lamps Plus is a partner as well. Thank you very much. I'm going to introduce my guests in a minute. I wanted to start off with the purpose of this particular conversation. You guys are really busy, right? You have a lot of things to do. During the 5 years of the podcast, I talked to designers and architects. And as busy as you are between getting new work, working with the clients you have, speccing new products, invoicing, working within the office, handling fires, you handle a lot of fires, by the way. You don't have a lot of time to focus on the brand development, not the work, but the brand development, the who you are as a brand. And all of you are brands. So one of the things that I wanted to do this year is I wanted to introduce you to some people that I think can help you and provide some insight. So the purpose of this conversation is we're going to talk about branding from a single proprietor designer or architect up to a global brand. And I want to, first of all, thank the guests that we have here for coming, and I want to introduce you to them. First up is Lori Dennis. So Lori is a speaker, best-selling author, and star of HGTV's The Real Designing Women. Her firm specializes in luxury, high-end interior architecture, and healthy living. Lori has been on the podcast a couple of times. We've known each other for years, and I absolutely love talking to her, and I think you're going to like hearing what she has to say. Opposite Lori is Ivette Serrano. Ivette is Senior Public Relations and Social Media Manager for Lamps Plus, the nation's largest specialty lighting retailer. She oversees influencer marketing, social media, charity partnerships, events, and TV production, TV product integration, rather. And next to her, we've got Nick Gawith. Nick is VP and Senior Group Creative Director at Publicis.Sapient's LA office, serves as the creative lead for one of its largest accounts, which is Samsung. With more than 15 years of creative leadership experience, he provides strategic creative art and design direction to the agency across brand and commerce capabilities. So what we have here is 3 people who handle brands in a very different way. So welcome. Thank you guys for coming out. Lori, I want to start this off. Lori, you and I have spoken on numerous occasions, and I love your story. And I'm hoping that, having shared it with me, you can share it with them, that design was not your first career. And so when you approached that business, it was a passion, a love of yours, sort of how you approached it with a brand-first mentality.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to sit next to these guys, too, because I'm always learning. So if you have any questions about anything and it's unclear, you can definitely get in touch with me, LoriDennis.com, and I'll be happy to go into it further because we have so much time here. But I was in finance first, and I found that every single dime that I had was going into buying single-family homes and apartment buildings and renovating them. And that was truly my love my entire life. So when I decided I was going to take the leap and become an interior designer, I went and decided to differentiate myself by going to school and actually getting a degree. Don't know if you need it or not, but in the end, from UCLA. And then I thought, okay, there's, I don't know, maybe 2,500 interior designers who are pretty darn qualified and talented in the Los Angeles area at that time. Maybe more. How do I differentiate myself? So the first thing I did to come at it from a brand perspective is pick something that was unique and authentic to me, which was a story about longevity and sustainability. And I decided that that would be my platform and how I was going to be special, unique, and different from everyone else. And so our brand is all about sustainability and longevity. And these are threads that run throughout our interior design, construction, and media businesses. Everything or I would say the most paramount thing in our business is respect for the environment and human health, and everything that we either build, sell, buy, or reuse of people in their environments is something that is of quality and value and is meant to last. And then everything in our business supports that message. We wrote a book called Green Interior Design to make ourselves the category killer. We do a lot of video for film and television. We speak in public events and on panels like this. We have other people writing about us. We take all of that information, we document it, and then we recirculate it across all social. Before it wasn't social, before it was how you would put your, when I got started, a package together and send it off to editors. They were the people who would the gatekeepers who would decide who got to see what about you. And make sure that every single thing that you put out there speaks back to the brand, the longevity and the sustainability, and who we are.
And I think part of that, and this is why it's sort of a good transition, is Lori is also a brand ambassador for Lamps Plus. And it's a great partnership. It's a great program. So, Ivette, I'm just curious, from your perspective and that of a major retailer, what do you try to do to integrate and engage with the design community, and how does that work with the brand as a brand itself? You know what I mean? Like, how do you try to represent the design industry working with individual influencers?
Hi, everyone. So that's a good question. We have our pros program. That's our trade program that is specifically for interior designers, contractors, builders. And so that's really our biggest way where we are an asset and a resource to interior designers. On the branding side, like you said, we do have all these partnerships. We're a sponsor here at WestEdge. We have brand ambassadors like Lori, who are out in the community, have their ears on the ground, and are knowing what is trending. They can come back and help us be more relevant to what the consumers want to see. And as a retailer, that's always an issue, because how are we connecting with all these different segments and all these different audiences? So we really need to have the insights of people who are actually doing the interior design and are out there and using our products, right? Lori has so many projects where she's done homes of all sizes with our product, and that's great to see. And for us, we turn that back into tips. We turn that back into videos. If you go to lampsplus.com, you'll see a buying guide in every single category. We take the actual data from our customers on our website, and we make videos for you to understand. And so if you're having a client who is asking you questions, it's very easy to come to the site and pull that data. And so it's kind of 360, as you said. As a brand, we pull in brand ambassadors, we pull in our data, and we try to go out and have this design for all mentality.
And I think from there, Nick, it's interesting for you at Sapient Razorfish. Your client that you have the most engagement with is Samsung. I would imagine there's a lot of layers, but at the same time, the goal is still the same. How do you approach it?
Yeah, Hello. Yes. It's really interesting, and first of all, it's great to be here because I feel like a bit of an outsider in this audience because I'm a graphic designer by background, so it's really nice to be in this space. So thank you for having me here. It's cool to be listening to my co-panelists here, because the interesting thing to me about where branding and self-branding is heading these days is that it's become almost the pursuit of the individual. So I work with I've worked with Samsung right now, but we work with all sorts of different brands that are kind of FTSE 100 companies. And if you think about all the tools that are out there that can help us brand ourselves or our entities, they're really, most of them are designed for individuals, right? Like most of those tools out there are for each of us to communicate more effectively with one another and have a conversation. At a company like Samsung, that's incredibly layered, you know, to just the control of the Samsung Instagram account is an extraordinary undertaking, you know, involving multiple people across multiple geographies with multiple responsibilities. So it's super cool that, you know, we have these tools now that enable us to kind of communicate on a much more one-to-one basis. My position on branding and where it's going from the perspective of you know, working at a large agency is that I got into it because I was sort of almost bored and tired of advertising, and I guess like looking at the audience here, it feels like, you know, many of you guys, most of you guys are part of this generation of people who are kind of just like basically don't trust adverts anymore, and I you know, and I feel like I came into the agency world feeling the same way, and so advertising has become this thing where it's like it's become almost disingenuous, right? You know, where you're trying to communicate a message in a really emotional way a lot of the time to get someone to buy something or change the behavior. Where what we've started to realize and what I get really excited about in what I do is actually engaging with people in their space. So meaning creating experiences that are valuable to them or in service of them, that are purposeful. So like my favorite example that I bring out is like I've always loved is like Lowe's 6-second fixes. I don't know if you guys have seen that out there, but like Lowe's, you know, their Vine account, God bless Vine, they created a 6-second fixes where they'd show you how to take the paint off a paintbrush in 6 seconds. And that was a service to people. You know, it's a valuable piece of service that actually is purposeful. Very different to a lot of the advertising out there, and a lot of, I think, what happens in social media, which is just people posting things that are beautiful or interesting, that are quite self-involved. So I think I really get excited about adding purpose to the way we communicate and the way we engage, because, you know, ultimately, you know, if you can help someone do something, then you create a much more compelling engagement with them than if you share something that is, you know, maybe beautiful but fleeting.
I think that's great. It's also, you remind me too of a point that I wanted to bring up, because as busy as we are, and we all look at how do we spread the word, right? Let's talk about advertising. Everyone here, we all have Samsung's budget to advertise, right? Yeah. It's tough, but even, you know, for that company with that brand, they're competing against others that have similar assets and similar war chests. So, you know, the question is, how do we differentiate? And I think advertising has become, we don't really trust it the way that we did, to your point. So we look at social media, and I, for one, I'll tell you personally, and I want your take on this too, is I am incredibly frustrated with social media. In years of researching social, here's the deal, right? We look at our profile, we look at how many followers we have, we look at the engagement that we get, and it is in no way, shape, or form representative of the amount of followers we have. So it's kind of like, well, if they're followers, why aren't they engaged with us? Why don't we have that two-way conversation? That's what social media was supposed to do. So what you find is you put something out there, and here's what happens. You'll get a couple of comments representative to the number of followers you have, and every one of those comments will generally have 3 to 4 emojis, or great, beautiful, pretty. Is that engagement? So what is meaningful engagement? And as branders, what is meaningful engagement to you?
Well, I don't want everybody to get all upset about how many followers people have and how many likes they get and how many people respond, because I'll let you know that unless you're Kim Kardashian, they're all fake. A lot of them are fake. People buy them. It's really easy to up your numbers and your comments and your engagement. So don't pay attention to any of that. I think that it's better to have 50 people who really care about what you're doing and are engaged in what you're doing, and engage with you offline, or really give you more than just a smiley face, than 800,000 people who really don't care and are not going to do anything for you, and you're not going to do anything for them outside of them just scrolling through quickly and tapping. So, you know, and don't get upset that people don't engage either, because not everybody is, you know, you might be the kind of person who likes to be on stage and share your message, and other people just, they just want to watch. So you could have a lot more engagement than you actually think you do. And that could result in things where people never made a comment and never liked anything, but then they hire you for a project, which has happened to me. And you're like, whoa, you're watching me? And they're like, we're all watching you. And that was the Vintage Club. It's the #1 private club in North America. They're in Palm Springs. And they hired us to come do their project. They have 500 members who are, like, one of them is, what's his name, Bill Gates. And so don't worry so much if they're having a conversation with you. I love what you said, and I think I'm going to change the way that I'm doing things, and maybe stop talking so much about what I'm doing and about how I can help others. That's such. See, I told you I would learn from these people, and offer some more 6-second ideas for people to learn more. So I think if you're doing that, you are really engaging. They're just not. Maybe taking the time to express themselves and put themselves out there as much. And then you probably will notice that the more popular you get, people will have, negative engagement with you. So you'll get more people like to give bad reviews than good reviews. I don't know why our culture's like that, but it just is. Just be authentic, be real, put out there what you want the world to see, curate your own message. Here's your chance to be your own editor-in-chief. We never had this before social media. It's a pain in the ass. It takes a lot of time. It's like, oh, now I got to do this too. But it's your chance to be your own editor and share your very special message, and none of the garbage you don't want people to see, and just do it. And if they engage, great. And if they don't worry about it. That's my message about engagement.
I think that's awesome. And Nick, just for a second, back to you. With regard to the social, so you're creating campaigns, and then you're sort of looking at the company to push the campaigns and to get that engagement, to measure the engagement, to respond back to you. In your experience, you know, what is working? What is not working? What have you seen that's trending that you think has greater potential with regard? Because, like, I think that 6-second example is brilliant. It's genius. What else do you see?
I mean, I'm going to kind of say what Laurie already said, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it comes back to, like, what is successful for you. So if you have a really clear purpose and a niche that is all you, and that's what you do, then do that. And you may get not that much engagement, but the people you will engage with are, will be, eye to eye with who you are and what you do. An example of that, I mean, we worked for Lululemon many years ago, when they were kind of going from being a $1 billion company to a $5 billion company that they are now, right? And which is insane. And they, the whole company is populated by people who are incredibly enthusiastic. If you walk into a Lululemon store, right, like this customer service is extraordinary, and the people you meet are incredibly positive and forward and love the brand. And the people that buy Lululemon are the same as well. They are also incredibly passionate about the brand and excited. So they have a ton of followers, a ton of people who are watching what they're doing. But they didn't have that much engagement going on, outside of the store, because people just like, I like the brand, but that's it, So the thing that was really interesting with them is that they were just, because they were so enthusiastic about, the brand and working there, they used to post all sorts of stuff that was, maybe interesting, but not focused on what they did. So they, I remember they had like a bunch of recipes for chicken broth, right, on the website. And it's like, who comes to Lululemon to look for chicken broth recipes? Does anyone? I mean, maybe people that work there. I don't know. I don't know how popular chicken broth is in Vancouver, but that's a great example, I think, of where you've got to like stay true to who you are, whether you're a $5 billion company or a one-person entity, and be very purposeful about what you put out there. And I think, to answer your question about what works, I think it then is about exploring. That's the other great thing about all the channels we have available to us now is you can experiment, And, I think sometimes people are fearful of that because, they're worried about troll, like backlash and stuff. But honestly, like, just put things out there. I mean, we do that all the time. We do lots of we have lots of relationships where we post all the time for companies, we just explore things, and some things fail spectacularly, but some things you find, it's like working on a comedy routine. Some jokes aren't going to land, but if you change it slightly to the left or the right, then actually you might work for this audience. So that's what we do. It's no different to anyone else, but always on purpose.
And sometimes a spectacular failure can be remarkable. Something that you both have talked about thus far, which I think is awesome, is the concept of authenticity. Yvette, as big as Lamps Plus is as a brand, as many SKUs as you have, what is the authentic nature of the brand? Because ultimately it comes down to one thing, right? So how does the brand identify itself? And if it's sort of the concept of, if you had just met someone for the first time from another country who doesn't know what Lamps Plus is, in explaining it to them, which of course everything else sort of shoots off of that, the authentic nature of the brand. Who is Lamps Plus, and how do you come up with that idea? And does that change for you?
So one of the things that I was thinking about while Nick and Lori were speaking was, with social media, it can be very overwhelming. There's so many platforms, and even as a brand, we have a team, and sometimes we're overwhelmed as to what channel. So you have to take a step back and be authentic to who your identity is, right? And that's, brand identity is what you are trying to convey. It's very different from your brand image. So take a step back, see what your key messages are, right? Everybody wants to have those 3 nuggets. For us, we're family owned, we design and manufacture our own product, and we've been around for over 40 years. You will see that over and over and over across all of our creative, on our social channels, and you can see it in the relationships we have as well. The charities we partner with, the TV shows that we want to be a part of. And so taking a step back and just knowing what those key messages are for you will kind of help you with that editorial calendar, and say, specifically to Instagram, where you're looking at all these photos and you want your feed to look beautiful. Take a step back and say, what am I showing? Is every 12th photo a picture of my dog? And now I volunteer at a rescue mission. Now when people think of me, they say, Lori loves dogs. Or every 10th photo is you with your baby and you're a new mom. So you kind of can curate your channels to your interests, but also showing your identity.
I think one thing to add to that as well, I think it's really important I think we've been talking so far about being true to what the brand is, and putting the brand out there, or who you are as an individual out there. I think it's really important as well to think about who you're targeting. So, we have like data scientists and analytics people, and all of those people who are like, their full-time job is understanding the audience and like profiling them perfectly. But if you're a one-person entity, like, the tools are out there. Like Google Analytics is an amazing tool. Like, there are things that even for the likes of me, who's, I'm actually really a technophobe, but I can operate those tools and understand. And so, especially with social, like, you can really go out there and understand who's looking at what you post, and get real-time feedback. But moreover, I think it's really important. Like, one of the exercises we always do, whether we're making something social or other digital channels, is to really like develop personas around the audience we're going after. So, persona meaning like literally you're creating an identity that you're going after. What's their name? Who are they? What are they interested in? What other channels are they on? What do they read? What do they watch on telly? All of those things that can help you put yourself in the audience's shoes. Because you've got to remember, it's a two-way thing. Otherwise, we come back to kind of like advertising, where it's like, Nike has a great purpose, right? And like 20 years ago, their purpose was, it's just, one-to-many communication. Like Apple have kind of gone the same way. Like they actually have like a real issue today with like communicating one-to-one, because they're really good at doing one-to-many huge, beautiful TV spots, right? But you've got to kind of come at it from the other way as well. Like, think about who your audience is, really profile them and meet them where they are, go to the places they're at, so that you can engage with them more meaningfully.
Let's explore that a little bit more, because something that you've heard so far, right? You've heard that you're, I don't want to say masters of your own domain, but you're publishers, You are. If you have social media, if you have a website, if you have any content that you push at all, guess what? You're a publisher. What any publisher will tell you, and I can tell you this from experience, is you have to have an editorial calendar. You have to have a plan. You have to decide. Otherwise, it's just a series of beautiful pictures, one after the other, and you're not really telling your story, you're telling somebody else's story. So I think, for me, in my own experience, quality editorial, the editorial that I've received the most in numbers, the greatest in quality of engagement, has come from moments. It's moments. It's things that have happened. And I'll tell you straight up, WestEdge for me, I know, I've been working with Troy and Megan on WestEdge every year for the last 4 years through Convo by Design. WestEdge presents an opportunity for moments for the next 3 days for me. I encourage you, and it's not a plug, but I encourage you because I believe in what I'm saying. Go to Convo by Design, download the podcast. Over the next 2 months, you'll be hearing conversations like this and others. These are my moments. These are the moments that I'm looking for. And I would encourage you as publishers as well, because you are, to find those moments along those lines. From your
one thing to add to that as well. It's interesting. Like, publishing is a really interesting word, I think. Like, and not to get too philosophical about it, but I would also think about, or encourage people to think about, like, the idea of, like, you're not really a publisher, you're a participant, right? Like, if you believe in a subject, like if you believe in sustainability, Laurie has a great practice around that. Like, that's a conversation, right? So you are a participant in that conversation. So be a participant and think of yourself like that. I think, the idea of publishing is, in a way, maybe controversial, but I think it's a little bit of an outdated term, because you're a part of a conversation that's going on, and that is increasingly the way that people are engaging with content and with media. Like, we're in this sort of post-truth era, right, where, like, anything you read or you hear, you can question it, and it may not even be true in the first place. So the idea of publishing as a sort of having intellectual capital that you used to have, 10, 20 years ago is kind of disappearing, for better or worse. And so I think it's more about, like, there's an interesting idea around, like, being a participant and engaging in a conversation that you believe in versus publishing your A to B kind of communication out there.
Okay, but wait a second. Our first conflict. I love this. All right, so I don't disagree with you, but here's just a different spin on it, right? I think that publishing is conversation with purpose. Otherwise, you can have conversations and talk about things that you find interesting, but if you're not doing it with purpose, then is it, question, not statement, is it focused? So I guess I would ask you guys, what is your approach to that? Are you publishers? Are you publishers, and how do you approach the conversations with purpose, and how do you identify, recognize, maybe even manufacture the moments from which you jump off?
For Lamps Plus on our owned channels, those are, our website, our catalog, our email, we really try to focus it back to the story we want to tell. And more now, as everyone is becoming an influencer, we have to pay attention as to how we are being perceived. So what we try to do is we try to focus back on why we are doing things, because people want that emotional connection. And I think a lot of you guys maybe have seen this TED Talk about how people don't buy what you're selling, they buy why you're selling. And so on our feeds, we try to show that inspiration. We try to show how you can get beautiful lighting, or how you can attain this look, right, within the Lamps Plus forum. And that's been working for us. And you brought something up earlier, Josh, about testing. We're always testing on our channels, and it's important to see and follow every time you make a slight change. Did it work? Did it not work for you? Earlier in the year, everyone was telling us our creative team wanted to do pets and babies. We've never had any pets and babies. We need a baby in our catalog. We need a pet. We need a dog. So this year, we tested pets and babies, and our engagement didn't do well. a lot of our posts bombed. So what did that tell us? We had to go back and evaluate our strategy. And even though all the pets and babies are so cute, that's not our audience. Our audience loves luxe, glam. We put 2 crystal table lamps on a mirrored buffet table. Oh, they'll eat it up. 2,000 likes. We'll put a cute puppy with a cute lamb, 200 likes. So we gotta be evolving on that.
I think that that's incredibly valuable information, because it's funny. I coach girls' youth soccer, and I will tell the players all the time, go out and make every single mistake you can. Just don't make the same one twice, right? And that's a very easy thing to say, and it's very difficult to follow. But I want to bring this back to the first thing that we started talking about today. You guys are busy. You're busy, and doing things that don't turn into revenue for you are a waste of your time. And one thing that I would love for you to leave with from here is, if you do something on social or otherwise, have a mechanism in place for testing it. Because if you don't, you're not going to know if it worked or not. If you get a ton of likes, that's great. Did it turn into engagement? If you get paid on likes, then maybe that works for you. But if you get likes and no other engagement, maybe it doesn't work for you. So I think that's sort of the next thing I wanted to talk about, is the mechanism and employment of testing and procedures. So, Lori, how do you know if it works?
You had a question for us as well, and I don't know is the answer, truthfully. And it sounds like sometimes Lamps Plus, who has many more zeros in their budget for advertising than I do, sometimes doesn't know. And I bet Nick probably doesn't always know. It's just, the question that you asked us was, how do you make a video go viral? And I have no idea. And how do you do the testing and know exactly what you're doing right and wrong? I have no idea. I'm not about hitting a home run. Again, I'm going to go back to my authenticity and to my brand. That's about longevity. I want to get singles every time. Slow and steady wins the race for me. If I keep on putting up information on my blog and doing interviews and making partnerships with people who care about the same things that I care about, and I keep promoting that stuff out on these social channels, I get people who hire me. And that's how I know I'm succeeding. Again, I don't care about the likes and the dislikes and the comments, and it's fun. I mean, everybody has a little bit of an ego, but it all boils down to, is business and revenue more this year than it was last year? And are the people responding and telling me? Like, I'll just ask people who I'm working with, what do you guys think? Because they know everything. Like, you also want to be careful about that with your brand. Like, don't be posting stuff you don't want people to know, because that's how I do it. But it's a much smaller scale for me, and I'm sure for many of you, with that testing method, because I'm a technophobe as well, and the analytics, okay, I can read them and I can see it's going up or down, but it's really hard for our team to sift through specifically what those we just don't do it that way. It's very hard for us to understand that, and it really boils down to, are we doing more business this year than last year, and what are people saying about what we're doing? And I'm telling you, if you can pick 3 words, if we don't have time for the workshop, that reflect what you're doing and what you want to portray, and you just keep posting information that goes back to that brand identity and that those words that resonate with you, it's going to happen. And sometimes a post, you might it's funny to talk about what works and what doesn't work. I'll post something, I'll think it's the best thing I literally have ever done in my life, and it'll be meaningful and it'll have value, and nobody gives a shit, and you're just like, wow, but you like this picture of that water bottle? I don't get it. I really don't get it. But it doesn't matter, because that's just one little moment, right? And all of the moments make our brand. So if 99 of the moments are good and one of the moment is not, and you can't figure out why, I don't think you need to rack your brain with all that stuff at our level. At a smaller level, you should think and take the advice of the big brands here, but keep it real. I mean, you have so many hours in a day, and and just keep it real.
I think that's a great point, and it's funny. Do you guys remember when Twitter first came out? I hate to date myself, but when Twitter first came out, it became the place to look at sandwiches. It's like, oh, look at my sandwich. It's like, wow, where'd you get that sandwich? What's in that sandwich? Is the sandwich good? And then afterwards, people were like, who cares? I'm not hungry. Why do I care about a sandwich? But the point is that media, not just social media, but any media, any marketing, it's a moving target. And it's a moving target for you. And I'm going to keep going back to the same thing. I'm going to beat it into the ground. You guys are busy. And anything that you don't do that's generating revenue for you, you have to evaluate that by its own value and its own worth. I want to jump off on something that Lori said. She talked about the workshop. Wanted to try to do something different with this because every time, like you, I've sat through a lot of panels. I've been in a lot of these, and sometimes I leave feeling like I wish I had a chance to engage, but I don't want to be one of those people that asks the pedestrian question at the end that everyone goes, oh my God, why did they ask that? You know who those people are, you've seen them. Instead of doing that, but I want this to be meaningful and I want it to provide engagement and I want it to be something that you guys can leave and say, you know what? Here's something that I left with in particular. We started a little bit late, so we're gonna end a little bit late, and then we're gonna go to a workshop. And by that workshop, I would love for you to stay and participate. It just simply means we're gonna hop off the stage, we're gonna go mix and mingle, we wanna sort of try to, it's gonna be a little unwieldy, but we wanna try to break into, maybe 4 smaller groups and to talk to you about your brands. If you have questions about your brand, if you have ideas that you wanna test off, not just us, but I want you also to introduce yourself to the person next to you. I want you to leave here with a new friend, but better than a new friend, I want you to leave here with maybe somebody that you can work with in the future. Make a new connection here. That's what we're trying to do. So when we go to the workshop, you're not gonna miss anything else. Hopefully some of you will stick around and get something out of this. That being said, I wanna go back to the concept of authenticity and the brand statement, because it's so simple and it comes down to 3 things, right? So Nick, when you're having that initial meeting with a new client, and even if it's somebody that's been around for a very long time, like a Samsung, or someone that was relatively new, like a Lululemon, how do you approach the concept of brand to make sure, because the work you do is built on that foundation. So you have to make sure that they're on point before you can deliver what they're asking you to deliver. How do you approach that? And the concept of brand statement, and that's something that while we're talking, maybe you guys can think about your own brand statement and what your 3 things are, so we can talk about it when we're done. But Nick, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite, for us, a lot of the time that is in place, depending on who the client is, like Samsung have, reams and reams of material that tells us who they are and why they exist. But it's kind of interesting. Oftentimes, kind of coming back to that point of like, there's a bit of conflation between the idea of like communication tools and like why do you exist? So a lot of our clients have all the communication tools. So we say, oh hey, how you doing? Like, what material do you have that tells us about you? And they send us the brand guidelines. So that's what does your logo look like? Where can you not use the logo? What colors should you all of that good stuff. But that's great, but it doesn't tell us like why do you exist in the world? Like why do you what's your purpose? Like why do I care? About what you do? And a lot of the times it comes down to we should care because we sell this thing. But I think increasingly it's flipping to like that, bigger purpose behind what it is that you do. What conversation are you participating in? So that's typically the first. If it's not in place, that's the first conversation we have. And people call it all sorts of different things. But what we try and come up with our clients in that instance is almost like an organizing idea, which is not something that would face customers or go out into the world. But it's just a kind of like almost the North Star by which everyone is aligned and rallied around in whatever we do, because a lot of the times we do stuff that is behind the scenes, like we change the way that businesses work, and that also needs a North Star. It needs something that you're all shooting for. Like, what is it that we're all doing together that changes what we do outwardly, and because it's no longer just about a TV spot or whatever it is, that involves a lot of different people who are sometimes got nothing to do with the Instagram feed or the Pinterest board, or that back office people. So we have to have that kind of like purpose, because it just influences everything that then goes out into the world, and really codify that with our clients.
Can I ask a question to the audience?
Yeah.
How many of you in the audience feel very confident about your brand message and that what you're putting out into the world is what you're actually putting out into the world? Okay, almost no one. I mean,
okay,
like,
so because
maybe 5. Congratulations to those of you.
Because we're a podcast and people are going to be listening to this and not seeing it, what would you say about
5 people raised your hands?
5 in a room of 100, 5%?
That's great. So, do you want to know what the difference is between the people who have it and the people who don't? It's just merely sitting down and writing those things that matter to you, and then deciding to put them out there. So now let me ask, how many people here feel like they just really just don't have the time to do something like that because they're overwhelmed with everything else that they're doing? Okay, more hands went up. Maybe like, I suspect that probably a few people didn't put their hands up. I mean, everybody feels like they don't have time, but I bet every single person that put their hand up has 1 extra hour every week that they could stop watching a Netflix episode. Honestly, like, I don't mean to scold, but like, that's how you find that hour, that, and okay, I'd rather go get a glass of wine and, go watch the new weird Maniac show or whatever the latest thing is. But you just take that hour and give it back to yourself, write down those things and make your calendar. And then that's how you find time. Because people ask me all the time, how do you find time? That's how you do it.
Okay. So along those, sorry, Ivette, go ahead.
Actually, I was just going to say there's like really easy things you can do now, even just sitting in the audience, is like, do you have your photo on your bio? Do you have a bio? Does it have your name? Does it have your phone number? Like, those are all things that are so easy to do, but you'd be surprised a lot of people don't even think about that. It's like, how are you going to get in touch with me? How do you know? Where in the country are you? I get approached all the time by people who want to do a partnership or a collaboration, and I'm like, well, where are they? I go to their feed, I go to their website, I don't know, I don't have a picture, I don't know where in the country they're located, I don't know what their focus is. I only have enough time to vet every single one, and if you're not giving me that information up front, I have to move on. And so that's a missed opportunity for whoever was trying to reach out to us.
That is such a good point. Okay, so in 5 years, going on 6 seasons of doing Convo by Design, I've got a little info for you. This may be relevant to your life, it may not, but here's something that you should know about your peers and your industry in general. You are currently using, to do the work that you need to do to sustain your business and drive your brand, you're using 110% of the amount of time that you've allocated for that. That means you are taking 10% of the time that you're working to do your job from something else. It's coming from family, it's coming from friends, it's coming from travel, it's coming from somewhere else. But on average, and by the way, is this scientific? Absolutely not. This is empirical data that comes from people that I've spoken to, in over hundreds of interviews. I always ask people, so what are you doing? How much time do you spend? And we kind of drill down. On average, you're spending 10% more than you've allocated to do your job. And the question then goes to time management. And I don't want to turn this into a whole conversation about time management, but what I think what is interesting is, to Yvette's point, and Lori's to some degree, maybe that one show we don't need to watch, but I would say it's even simpler than that. How much time do we spend just looking at feeds? Just rolling through feeds, just looking at pictures. Oh, that's pretty, and it is a complete time suck. It is a complete time suck. It takes all of your time. Now, the flip side of that is, can I be hyper-focused all the time? Let me answer it for you. You can't, because you're creatives. You're creatives. Our right brains and our left brains don't always cooperate. We've got to be creative when we're inspired, and we've got to be productive when we need to. So this one goes to Nick, because I think you're a primary stakeholder in the marketing efforts and the brand direction of the companies that you work with, but they're not your companies. So you kind of have that separation from them. It's kind of a luxury, but I would imagine that it's also a little bit frustrating. How do you, in an era where people don't answer the phone, we don't respond to emails right away, to Yvette's point, we don't let everyone know where we're going. By the way, I think these are great tips that after we leave here, we can all look at what we have and say, you know what, here are 5 things I can fix right now that will make me more approachable and easy to locate and make myself available for someone to find. But that being said, how do you convey those messages about availability and brand messaging and deadlines to make sure that the brands you work with stay on point?
It's a great question. I wish I had the answer to it that's resolved everything. I mean, we tend to, again, like I feel both envious of everyone here because you have the flexibility to a bit more flexibility than we have, but also, you know, feel smug because we have, you know, people whose job it is to organize programmatically how we engage with our clients and keep us on schedule. So just to kind of crib from them a little bit, I think like what we try to do is to almost like, I'll try and take this like from the level I'm at to the level of an individual, but what we tend to do is to, when we first engage with the client, is like workshop out the entire project with them before we do anything. So we're like, here's a workshop with 30 people in it that all have different interests. Here's what we need to achieve. Do we agree on that? Here's like, we'll do all sorts of exercises with post-it notes to sticky boards and everything else to just map the world as we see it out, and then we'll turn that into, you know, something very, very tangible, and where everyone is held to account. So by the time you leave that workshop on day 2, you're like, okay, this is what we're doing. So just to kind of land that a little bit more, I think for individuals, having that I think we all operate on you know, on a 2-foot view right now, which is the laptop or the phone. And I think it's a very challenging interface to interact with on a day-to-day basis because you can only see one thing at a time. You can't, it's not an interface designed for holistic thinking. So I would say that the one thing that I've learned in my time of planning out projects and trying to organize my time and the time with my teams is to map that time physically in a space that we can, you know, all the things I need to do, what the priorities are, what the value of each of those things are, and then turn that into something tangible that maybe then can live in a laptop on a spreadsheet or wherever you keep it. But there's a lot to be said for just like having a physical post-it note. Does that answer your question? I'm going like super high level because
no, yeah. and that's what I wanted, because I want to go from that to Lori, who employs artistically one of my favorite concepts, and I want her to sort of explain how she approaches it, and that's the idea of no. And when someone asks you something, you don't have to always say yes. And with Lori's told me no before, and it always comes with a caveat. No, not right now. No, I don't really want to go in that direction. That doesn't really work. There's always a no but. You know what I mean? And I sort of want you to explain your philosophy on that.
I will. And I want to say, Nick, I actually do that once a year with our team. And your team could be you and your child. It could be you and your best friend. It could be you and your favorite client. It could be you and your significant other. But we do that exercise and get stickies and just like, what are we about? What are we trying to accomplish? That's over here. And then just like meld that all down into our goals. Make sure we're on point. Make sure, did our brand message change? All of that. So that is super real information that is so helpful. And it feels like you're really doing something very important. So it feels good and it works. Try it.
Lori, just on that point, we actually at Lamps Plus did that earlier this year with our CEO as well. And we brought in everyone and we did a whole board of our brand and what we wanted to convey. And where we landed was really an eye-opener. We were like, we're the everyman lover company.
I love that. And everyone can afford stickies and some time, so you all can do that. So the question of no. I think no is one of the most powerful things, and that's like a whole nother topic. There's so many of us in here because we're in a service business. We're pleaser oriented. We want to do the right thing, and a lot of us, especially, well, like everyone wants to be successful, and you want to capture as many dollars as you can and as much revenue. So you don't want to let things go. You don't want to let opportunities go. But I've just come to find in my 20 plus years in this business and my 49 years on this planet that when you shut one door, it's not the right door. Another one always opens. Another bus is always coming, and it's going to the place where you want to go. So don't be afraid to say no when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like something's off. They call it a gut reaction for a reason. Say no and just wait for the next better thing to come. And if somebody says no to you, which sucks sometimes, remember that rejection is protection, and it's the same thing in the other direction. Ooh, that all rhymes. I like that. That wasn't the right opportunity for that person, which in turn would maybe not be a good opportunity for you either. So no is great, and no is power.
This might be helpful. One of the things that we used to do a long time ago is evaluate any opportunity like really clearly through three lenses, and they change because I think they should really reflect what your purpose is. So like if you have a really strong purpose, then you should know the stuff you're saying yes to and the stuff you're saying no to. And the lenses we use were like fame, fortune, and fun. And anything we say yes to should be two of those buckets at all times. If you're just doing stuff for fortune, then it's probably not working. If you're doing it for both, fortune and fun, it's probably awesome. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So two of the three, if it hits 2 of the 3 points, then it's a preliminary go.
Yeah, depending on what if your purpose is those 3 things, then great, you can do it. But it's just you just landed everything in a really simple way, because invariably a lot of the asks we get are really complicated, and like it's hard to sometimes extract yourself from the weeds of like what the ask is. Whether it's a new design project or whatever it might be, it's hard to sometimes like emotionally get to a sort of left brain right brain balance, and I think that model really helped us a long time ago when we were evaluating inbound opportunities.
Ivette, you had a thought?
Yeah, I was just going to say that working on the brand side at Lamps Plus, I hear no a lot. I get a lot of no's. Even for WestEdge, I've been wanting to have Lamps Plus be a sponsor and have a booth and have all this, but I get a lot of no's. But the part that is fantastic is when you get a yes. And it just makes me so appreciative of those opportunities. And you know what? Maybe those no's wasn't a good fit for us at that time, and now we are here and we are taking advantage of the opportunity.
One follow-up to that, because I think you're the perfect person to ask this question. Because you have a brand ambassador program, because you work with so many brand ambassadors, because you reach, the ones that you work with aren't necessarily just the ones that you contact. You vet people all the time. I want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly with regard to that. No, it's important because you know what? Designers, this is an opportunity that's open to you to be a brand ambassador for a company. Whether they reach out to you or maybe because you pick up the phone and reach out to them, what better to hear from someone who does this, what they're looking for, what their expectations are, and what they want.
So our brand ambassador program was just launched this year. We work with 5 for the year, and as we mentioned, Lori is one of them. They are the ones who get full access to the company. They've come in, they've had the tour, they've met with our CEO. We take them to meet media, so they're really an extension of the Lamps Plus family. Secondary, or another program that we have is our influencer marketing program, and that's where I work with tons of interior designers, bloggers, influencers just from across the country and Canada as well, and they're just looking for a partnership. They want content just like us, and as I mentioned earlier, we get requests all the time, and we're a very lean team, so when you approach a brand, you got to do a little bit of your homework. You got to tell us what the project is, what you can do, and how your timeline, your deadline. if we have to come back over and over to one person, we probably will pass, because as you said, it's like a gut feeling. There's sometimes where on our team we're like, oh, I don't know if we should do it. Okay, let's try it. And it's always bad. It's just always, we've got, just a mess on our hands. So that's really important to trust that gut feeling. I mean, there are a lot of stories. I've been at Lamps Plus for 6 years, and we have worked with so many. But for the most part, there's a very short list of people that we will not work with. We for the most part, want to work with everyone as much as we can, as much as we have bandwidth for and budget for.
So we're running out of time here, so we're going to wrap it up a little bit. But the one thing that I wanted to do before we go is, so WestEdge every year falls in October. Then we've got Thanksgiving next month. Then we've got Christmas, or your whatever, Hanukkah, Ramadan. We've got New Year's after that. We know that the industry is gonna basically slow down, shut down through the holidays. What better time to actually focus on the brand development and the concepts that we've been talking about here? And I will tell you, I am guilty of being like, hey, I got plenty of time. I'll get to that later, and then I run out of time as well. I want to know, and I want to just sort of go around, whichever one of you can start first. How do you approach specifically brand development, not the personal side, but the brand development side, looking at 2019 or maybe even 2020 as well, looking at, is there a design house I want to be a part of? Is there a project of mine that I want coverage for? How am I going to approach that? How do you look from a brand development standpoint, from an execution standpoint, at a short-term, mid-term, and long-range timeline horizon? How do you approach that? Lori, I can start with you.
Well, I mean, we're doing it all year. We're checking back on what we made at the end of the year, that we're hitting our points all year. So we're always updating, we're always modifying, we're changing, we're malleable throughout the year. But our firm shuts down and reviewing what opportunities worked, what didn't. The 3D partners, we had some 3D partners, and a big thing we wanted to do didn't pan out. And why? So you review all those things all year. But we shut down our firm for 2 weeks at the end of December, the last 2 weeks. It's just done. The phones are off. You can't. We're not doing anything. No trades are working anyway. And that's the time when we go on our separate ways, and really, I ask everybody to, refresh, rejuvenate, do your own thing, be with your families, but to really start thinking about those things. And we come back together and we do the powwow room, where we put everything out and we know what's going to be go time for that year. We do one not for 2 years out, but for about 5 years out. Where do we want to be in 5 years? I don't go past that, because I've just noticed that I've done that so many times, and things have to change so much that innately I kind of know that where I want to be long term, but concrete, real goals for us work no more than 5, because we wind up changing a lot of things anyway. But yeah, give yourself some time at the end of the year. It's the best time to reflect. And it shouldn't, I mean, I know a lot of people dread doing that. Like my husband, he runs all the construction, and now he's getting really into media as well. And he just he thinks of it as he's since changed his thinking, but he thinks of it as a chore and a bummer. Like, oh, I got to do this instead of something I want to do. And I said, this is the most empowering, wonderful thing to give yourself this time, when you don't have to think about other people you need to take care of, and to decide, what do you want to do and how do you want to do it? And I mean, if you guys own your own businesses and you're stewards of your own life, you're writing really the script, you should never be in a situation for very long. I mean, I know for a few minutes you can cry and be upset, but you should never be in a situation where you're like, I hate this sucks, I don't want to do this, because change it, just sit down and change it. And I think that's great advice at the end of the year, when things slow down, to look at that and to engage that. And if you're afraid, good, because being scared and getting into a weird place and doing something different means that you're succeeding and you're growing, and you're going to do even better in the following year. And just embrace it and look forward to it. And I think that you'll find that you really enjoy it, and even if you don't, you're at least benefiting from it.
Ivette?
I wish I could say we have this very sophisticating brand strategy session, but our planning starts now. We're for 2019 in October. And it's very simple for us. We look at the calendar and we focus on all the events that are happening, where we want to be at, where we want to make a difference. But before that, we take a step back and we're like, who are the audiences we want to reach? So for us, we want to definitely reach consumers, right? Because we're a retailer. But we also want to reach designers, and we also want to reach media. And so we bring in our different partners. We have our PR agency that's great, that helps us brainstorm big ideas, big communication strategies. We brainstorm with our social media. I mean, we were just brainstorming a few weeks ago because there's like all these hashtag holidays, and now every day is like national this day and national that day, and it's like, well, do we got to be part of that? And it's like, we want to be part of. We want to be part of National Donut Day, right? Like, that's a fun holiday to be part of. So we got to scale it back because we can also be at all these different events. So again, it's very simple for us. We look at the calendar. We see those audiences where we want to be. We see the message that we want to say to each of those, and then what makes sense for us. Does it make sense for us to be there? And we'll pitch it.
That's super reassuring to know that a brand that is the #1 retailer for lighting in the country, which means that there's millions or billions of dollars of stuff going on there, is doing things exactly the same way that we're doing things. So I just imitate people who are successful when I don't know what to do. So do that.
Nick, anything to add there?
I mean, I think it's the same, to further reassure Laurie. I think it's the same. It's like, for every agency in the world, every big company in the world, they'll be doing, we do account planning at this time of year, Q4. And so we're looking to, map out, who our clients are, how they feel about us. Are they, lukewarm? Do they hate us? Do they love us? Who are those people? Where are the budgets? Who can pay for us? What the opportunities are. We'll also get into exactly as Ivette said, the content planning. So how do we what are the cultural events going on? What are the local events going on? What are partnerships that we might engage with? All of those kind of things that we can map out through the year, and then kind of, I guess, lastly, which is maybe less relevant for here, but we'll map out what does that look like from a kind of staffing, who do we need to enact that. So it's the same thing, it's just on a different, slightly different kind of scale. Yeah.
So you guys are operating on the same basic plane as Samsung, I think, is you're doing the exact same thing that everybody's doing. You're doing the right things, and it starts with being here. By the way, so thank you. You guys, you have a choice with your time. Your time is very valuable. It's the most valuable thing you have that you can't make more of, and you chose to be here with us for a little while. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to Ivette from Lamps Plus, with Nick Gawith from Publicis.Sapient, and Laurie Dennis from Laurie Dennis Interiors, and for ASID for presenting.